So I sat down to start filming. Like, I had the camera recording, I had the microphone going, and I leaned over to just like take a quick drink of coffee. And I ended up spilling it down the front of my shirt, like I got in my hair. And I went and got cleaned up, and I figured that I had three options. One, I could wait for my shirt to dry, or two, I could change to a different shirt, or three, I could just keep going. So, the Stargate Season 3 episode Demons has always been a very interesting one to me. Because Stargate pulls a lot of concepts from a lot of different religions, but mostly older religions that are no longer widely practiced. There are the Egyptian gods, there are the gods of Mount Olympus, there's Thor and the other Norse Viking gods. It's nothing particularly modern. This episode is really the only one that explores concepts related to Christian theology. And I think that a version of Stargate that explored those ideas more would have been really interesting. I know that never would have happened. This was the late 90s, and the show is a product of its time in that way. And incorporating Christian mythological concepts or theological concepts would have been considered very controversial and probably would have taken over the show in a way. Like, it would have overshadowed the actual message and like what the show was trying to do. And yet, I think that it would have been so interesting to have a storyline where Goa'uld pretend to be the angels, and they take these very specific, like blonde-haired, blue-eyed hosts, and they go around healing people using the Goa'uld technology. Or a Goa'uld who comes to Earth and learns that Christianity is now one of the primary religions, so he pretends to be Jesus. And they were so close with the episode Seth, with that Goa'uld and his Earth cult, but I would want a Goa'uld who goes just full mainstream televangelist. And there's a conflict because if SG-1 takes him out, then it looks like they're killing Jesus. And that was not a good look for the first guy who did it. Obviously, the eventual solution to that problem is that they end up capturing the Goa'uld, and they manage to remove the symbiote and free the host. And then they have the host like go around and do a bunch of talk shows saying like, yeah, no, I'm not Jesus. There was just some, force, some entity possessing me, but it's gone now, so you guys should all just stop asking about it. Okay, anyway, enough of my like verbal Stargate fanfic. So, Season 3, Episode 8, Demons. This episode starts with Jack doing, like, the Dr. Evil thing.
Or something.
And I don't know why, but it feels very weird to me that Stargate and Austin Powers exist in the same universe. Like, timeline-wise, it makes sense. The first Austin Powers movie came out in 1997, and this episode aired in 1999, but it still just feels weird. Anyway, SG-1 discovers this village on another planet that appears to have a church, which means that they follow Christianity, which means that they were likely taken from Earth way after Ra left, and likely taken through the Antarctic Gate.
This is the first sign of Christianity we've encountered, sir, in hundreds of missions.
Which means they probably had to have been taken from somewhere in medieval Europe through the Antarctic Gate.
Which I feel like should have been a bigger plot point, but They discuss the likelihood that whatever Goa'uld took these people is pretending to be God.
I know of no Goa'uld capable of showing the necessary compassion or benevolence that I've read of in your Bible.
We also learn that teal'c has read the Bible, because of course he has. I love how seriously teal'c has taken, learning Earth culture and all of the major tenets of society.
You read the Bible, teal'c?
It is a significant part of your Western culture. Have you not read the Bible, O'Neill?
Actually, I'm listening to it on tape. Don't tell me how it ends.
This is a good Bible joke because the Bible ends with the literal apocalypse. Also, it's not mentioned in this episode, but just as an aside, I love how much Teal'c loves Star Wars because it makes perfect sense. Star Wars is about space battles and aliens, which were all key parts of Teal'c's real life. Because if I went to another planet and they, with no real knowledge of Earth, created a series of movies that was on this conceptualized Earth-like planet, and it was completely ridiculous compared to what I experienced in my life, but was still presented in like this super earnest way, I would be so into it. So the people in this village quick scramble when SG-1 strolls on in, and this one woman pretty much slams a door in Daniel's face.
Hello? We're not gonna hurt you. We're peaceful travelers.
It's like, I'm Daniel Jackson. If you haven't heard of me, you should probably study. They find this stone marker, and I'm showing like a still screenshot because Jack asks, "Is this English?" And like, yes, Jack, it's very clearly English. I can read this. Can you not read this? Like, I don't think you need Daniel for this one. When I was talking, I touched the wet spot on my shirt, and now I'm really self-conscious about it again. So they find this lady with some sort of facial pox chained up in the town square, and she is very clearly terrified of them. And then this man in a burlap bathrobe runs out, brandishing a cross and begging SG-1 to spare her life. And then we get what is, for no apparent reason, one of my favorite Daniel moments. Like, this Daniel moment just lives rent-free in my brain. I literally have a screen recording of this particular moment on my desktop. I don't know why, but it's just there, and I just look at it sometimes, and it makes me laugh. Okay, so this guy in the burlap bathrobe is clearly afraid of them. He thinks they're demons, and Jack is like, no, we're not demons. No demons here. There are no demons. No such thing as demons.
Well, we're not demons. We're human, like you. From Earth, like you.
And then Daniel, with his like weird little Daniel affect that he does sometimes, just jumps in with this.
Do other demons come through the circle?
Do other demons come through the circle? Implying that, yes, demons are real, and that they are also demons. Daniel, read the room. So they free Pox Girl, whose name is Mary, and burlap bathrobe guy, whose name is Simon, says that the village is going to be performing a trepanning ritual on Mary tonight. And you see Daniel's head turn around real fast at that.
The elders will have to perform the trepanning ritual tonight to cleanse her.
Oh, jeez.
But like, Mary has chicken pox, so that's very clearly not going to help. But we get this classic Daniel line.
Well, I didn't call them the Dark Ages because it was dark.
Then they learn that the Goa'uld is not impersonating God. It is impersonating the devil. Or rather, like, just one, lackey demon in service of the devil, but still. The Goa'uld has the perfect host for it, an Unas.
The time of sacrifice is at hand.
Jack also makes a good linguistic point.
We killed him. He's dead.
We only killed one Unas.
I thought there only was one. Unas, uno, one?
They are in fact a species.
So the village needs to sacrifice 5 people by chaining them in the town square for the demon to come and take that basically then Goa'uld use as hosts. And Jack is basically just like, don't worry guys, we got this. We've killed one of these things before. It's fine.
Now, it's not a demon. It's demonesque, I'll grant you, but it's just a big ugly creature.
And I'm going to nitpick something in this scene for a second here. Okay, so listen to Daniel's line.
In the service of Sokar, who for all intensive purposes is Satan to these people.
I looked it up, and the script and transcripts you find online say for all intents and purposes, which is correct. But it sounds like Daniel is saying for all intensive purposes, which is not correct. Anyway, and then teal'c steps in and just tells them, don't worry, we're legit.
My friends speak the truth, Simon.
And I don't have a specific example of this at the moment, but I feel like there are a lot of situations where Jack and or Daniel are trying to convince someone of something, and the person isn't really listening to them, and then teal'c steps in and says, my friends are right, and he gives like a sentence or two of explanation, and whoever that person was that Jack and Daniel were not convincing just is suddenly completely on board after hearing teal'c. And I get it, because teal'c speaks with such gravitas and confidence that I would probably believe like literally anything that he would tell me ever. Jack is extremely overconfident that they can ambush the Unas in the morning and kill it.
Are you contemplating attack, O'Neill?
Yeah, sure, why not?
And Unas is difficult to destroy.
A couple of shots with a staff, we own him.
The guy who plays the village cannon is one of those actors who has been in so many things. Like lots of individual one episode speaking roles in every single show that's ever been filmed in Vancouver. And I looked at his IMDb page, his name is A.C. Peterson, and he also played a magistrate in an episode of Stargate Atlantis. And I feel like that does happen a lot with actors and those little like one episode roles. They often repeat. So the village canon focuses in on teal'c immediately. He is like, this guy has a mark of the devil and we need to kill him.
This one!
Which, if you're living in constant fear of the devil and like one of his giant lizardy demons is coming to your village every week to take people, then why would you want to kill one of the devil's messengers? So the village canon has like this magic ring. It's not magic, it's technology, but he has this ring that summons a storm that sends down lightning that acts sort of like a zap blast and renders SG-1 completely unconscious. Where can we get more of those rings? Like, where did that come from? Because that would come in really handy. SG-1 wakes up disarmed in a cage, and teal'c is basically on trial to prove that he is a witch. And if you listen to the crowd in the background, they were probably given the instruction to like jeer and boo him, but really all you hear is this one woman's voice, just one very dedicated woman yelling evil over and over. The village canon holds a hot poker to teal'c's first prime insignia, and of course, teal'c doesn't recoil or scream in pain, so he basically, loses that witch test. Next, they try to test teal'c by drowning him, and it looks like it worked and he died. Which means he's innocent! Sorry, guys!
Your friend's soul is clean.
But since teal'c is innocent and apparently dead, the rest of SG-1 can go.
If you wish, he'll be given a Christian burial.
What?
You're free to go.
There is a discussion of power in this episode.
But of course, you could just touch that lovely ring of yours and we'd all be struck down again.
Ah, the ring. It has been handed down through generations of village canons who came before me.
And with it, you maintain power.
And it's not just like the brute force power of gods and demons, but the subtle power of individuals. Like the village canon doesn't just maintain control by using his fancy storm ring, but by also controlling the sacrifices. Like he gets to pick the people that are chained in the town square for the demon to haul off.
The unclean souls among us must be taken away through the circle of darkness forever.
And you decide.
And that's an interesting concept. It's not a new concept, but I do think that it makes for a very compelling story when you have those two themes linked. Power through raw strength versus power through subtle manipulation. Meanwhile, Chickenpox Mary is about to get her head drilled open, and Daniel is like, hell no, and offers to take Simon and Mary back to Earth with him, which would also be a really interesting storyline if we get to see that play out. I feel like now my voice is getting kind of scratchy because I'm scared to drink anything. But then teal'c wakes up, scares some nuns. His symbiote, along with entering into a deep state of Kelnorim, kept him alive.
Way to go, Junior!
The village canon decides that SG-1 and Mary will be the 5 sacrifices, which, if the devil is demanding sacrifices from your village and you decide to select his messengers to sacrifice back to him, feels like kind of a cheat. Please note that SG-1 spends a lot of this episode in chains, if that's your thing. No judgment. So the Unas arrives and Jack sasses him, because of course.
The demon bit. Don't get me wrong, looks like a great gig. You got the Padre in your back pocket. The hours are good, probably get all the chicks, huh?
And then one of the villagers asks the thing that I have been asking this whole episode.
If they truly are servants of Satan, why does he resist?
On the march back to the gate, SG-1 decides to stage an escape. And I just love Daniel's little aside to Mary and how he says it so casually, like, oh, hey, by the way.
Mary, we're gonna take a little tumble, so just scrunch up in a ball and roll with the rest of us.
Honestly, though, they are pretty lucky that nobody's neck got snapped or got, badly strangled in that tumble down the hill. You see how the chain got kind of around Jack's neck here. This could have ended very badly. Burlap bathrobe Simon shows up to help, and fortunately, he is able to fire the staff weapon, despite presumably never actually seeing one fired before. The Unas bleeds bright green, and it gets, all over Simon's face. So while the Unas chases down Simon, SG-1 gets their hands on the staff weapon, finally breaks free of their chains, and Jack and teal'c decide to go after the Goa'uld. The cannon shows up to yell at Simon, of course.
What have you done?
We get this moment, which is simultaneously nice, but also very funny.
Your god has abandoned you.
My God is with me always.
Your god has abandoned you. My god is with me always. Blam! So Jack and teal'c arrive and they find the Unas dead, and Simon is fortunately just unconscious, and the village canon is like, I don't know what happened. The creature just dropped dead. That's so weird. What a miracle.
What happened?
Simon stood before it like David before Goliath. The demon threw him aside and then he fell. It was a miracle.
SG-1 goes to leave, and the village canon has clearly had a change of heart, and he keeps thanking them for showing him the way. And just when Sam is about to dial the gate, she senses something.
Carter.
Went into him.
I feel like as the seasons go on, Sam's Tok'ra powers kind of stop being mentioned as much. Obviously, in the early seasons, they were a big focal point because that was sort of the main plot line that they gave to Sam, was being the host for Jolinar for a short time. give her a love interest and everything, but I'm having a hard time remembering if those traits carried out through all of the seasons. I do think that they regularly brought back the ability of former hosts to use Goa'uld technology. Like, I'm thinking of Vala using the healing device at the beginning of season 9, but could Vala also sense Goa'uld? Like, does Sam ever use this ability again? And I'm gonna have to pay attention now to if there's any situation where there's a secret Goa'uld in the mix and Sam has no idea, because then that would kind of contrast what we're seeing here. So, I don't know. And then is there like a time limit? Do they say at any point if there's like a certain amount of time that the Goa'uld abilities last for? Because Sam was only the host to Jolinar for a really short time, and so she has these abilities, and it would make sense if, like, whatever the change, the biological change was, eventually reverted, like her body healed itself. But then I'm also thinking of Vala being able to use the healing device, and she was host to Katesh. At one point, Daniel says for a short time, but he's comparing it to how long Ball's host had him. So I imagine that Vala was host to Katesh for longer than Sam was host to Jolinar. But also, I think the implication is that Vala has been free from the Goa'uld, at least for a couple of years. So I don't know. I'm probably going to cut all of that. Anyway, they shoot the cannon, so he is dead, and the Goa'uld is dead. Talk about killing two birds with one stone. Simon and Mary say that after SG-1 leaves, they'll bury the gate, and then Jack gives the perfect closing line for this episode.
And there will be no more sacrifices.
Thank God.
This episode was very ambitious, and I feel like it was pretty well written. We got to see how the Goa'uld would utilize Christianity, but like in a way that was not controversial for the time. And we got a classic Daniel line, and I always appreciate those. The only weird thing is that there are these strange, slow fade to black moments, and we see it when Jack is upset after teal'c dies, and then we see it again in the last shot. And that's an editing choice. That has nothing to do with like the writing for the episode, but like I notice it every time. There is really only one strong reference to Christianity that I can think of off the top of my head. There might be more, but I'm specifying off the top of my head, my very sleepy head. And that is in the season 9 episode where Vala is communicating from the Ori galaxy with Stargate Command through Daniel's body. And she tells them that she is pregnant through like divine intervention means. And she asks them if they've ever heard of anything like this ever happening before. And you can tell that most of SG-1 and the audience is thinking, Jesus. And then teal'c says Darth Vader. And I love that so much. And then I think Cam says that he was actually thinking of King Arthur, which, like, yeah, sure you were, buddy. Okay, I believe that. I kind of can't wait till I get to the later seasons in these rewatch videos, because it's almost like a completely different show. And they do a lot more things that are intentionally kind of ridiculous, so there's just a lot more to react to. And with so many preceding seasons, there's a lot of background and there's a lot of context to call back to and examine, you know, in the current situations that the team finds themselves in. I'm also, like, I'm chomping at the bit to do The Quest Part 1. Obviously, you know, I'm not there yet. I'm still kind of jumping around season 3. But I have a lot to say about The Quest Part 1. There is one really ridiculous element of that episode, and I think about it a lot. We'll get there. We'll get there eventually. Someday. Years from now at the rate I'm going. I think I'll be getting this posted before the new year, so if so, Happy New Year! And if I'm getting it posted after the new year, I also still wish you a Happy New Year. That doesn't change. I guess I could have just said Happy New Year instead of doing the whole lead up. I need more coffee. I hope I don't spill it on myself like a child. Children shouldn't drink coffee. I'm gonna go.